Amber loved Halloween more than any other night of the year. She liked costumes, spooky decorations, and masks that could make anyone look like someone else. This year, she found a small street shop at the end of the market. The shop was barely lit, covered in torn orange cloth, and wind chimes made of bones hanging above the entrance rattled with the breeze. A strange mask caught her eye. It looked old, like it was carved from a face instead of made from plastic. The eye holes were too deep, and the smile looked a little too real. The shopkeeper was a thin old man, with a voice that sounded like he had not spoken in years. He whispered, "Do not wear that mask after midnight." Amber laughed and thought he was trying to scare her into paying more. She bought the mask for a cheap price and walked home excited, thinking it would be funny to scare her friends. At 12:30 in the morning, she stood in front of the mirror in her room. She placed the mask on her face and tied the straps behind her head. The mask felt cold at first, then suddenly warm, like skin. She smiled at her reflection, but then her smile did not move the same way in the mirror. The mask tightened against her cheeks. She tried to pull it off, but it did not move even a little. Panic grew inside her chest. She grabbed the edges and pulled harder. It felt like the mask was glued to her skin. A sharp pain shot through her face. She felt the mask stretching her own skin. Her voice sounded strange as she called for help, like she was speaking through someone else's mouth. Her eyes looked different too, darker, deeper, and the mask's lips curled into a smile she did not make. Her phone buzzed on the dresser. A message from a number she did not know appeared on the screen. "Once you wear a stolen face, your own is no longer yours." Her heartbeat exploded in fear. Amber tried clawing the mask, desperate to remove it, but the more she fought, the more it tightened, like the mask was sinking into her flesh. She stumbled back and kicked the mirror. A tiny crack appeared. She heard breathing behind her, even though she lived alone. She turned slowly. No one was there. The reflection in the mirror showed a shadow behind her, whispering something she could not understand. Her head began to feel heavy. The mask eyes blinked, but she did not blink. The mask was controlling her movements. She felt something inside her fade away, as if the mask was eating her identity piece by piece. She screamed, but the scream sounded cheerful, like a cruel laugh. When the sun finally rose, her room was silent. Amber was nowhere to be found. The mask lay perfectly still on the floor, and its eyes were wide open. Later that day, neighbors reported the shop as suspicious. Police arrived and found no one inside the shop. Dust covered every surface as if it had been closed for years, but in the display window, standing alone, was the same mask Amber bought. The mask kept watching, waiting for another face to wander close to it, for another night, and ever being worn again by its next owner. It was Halloween night, close to 11, and most of the neighborhood had already gone silent. Pumpkins had burned out, and decorations swung slowly in the cold wind. Evan and his best friend Tyler were the only kids still trick-or-treating on that street. They had heard that this area gave out the best candy every Halloween, and they were not ready to go home yet. The streetlights flickered above them as they walked toward the last house with a glowing porch. An orange pumpkin sat by the door, carved into a strange, crooked smile. Its eyes looked too real, as if watching them approach. Tyler whispered that he did not like the look of that pumpkin, but Evan was excited. More candy meant more fun. Evan knocked on the front door and shouted with a playful voice, "Trick or treat?" No one replied. The wind rushed by and the porch creaked under their feet. Evan knocked again, harder this time. The door slowly opened with a long, dry sound as if it had been untouched for many years. Inside the house, there were no lights, only a trail of candles leading deeper into the hallway. The air smelled like cold dust and melted wax. A small metal bowl full of candy sat at the end of the candle path. Beside it was a piece of paper with shaky handwriting that said, "Take one and do not look back." Tyler warned him to leave, but Evan laughed at the note. He ran inside, grabbed more than one handful, and turned to leave. That was when he heard it. Fast footsteps, rushing behind him like someone sprinting in the dark. He froze. Every hair on his neck stood up. Against the walls, the shadows stretched and twisted. The candles flickered violently. Something tall moved in the hallway, towering over the doorway. Evan turned to look, even though the note told him not to. His breath stopped. There was a figure standing right behind him. Not a human,
Not a costume, a huge dark shape with a pumpkin head, glowing from the inside. Its carved smile was too wide, its teeth too long, and its eyes burned with fire. It tilted its head slowly, as if enjoying his fear. Evan dropped all the candy and ran, screaming for Tyler. They crashed through the door together, stumbling into the cold rain. Evan did not look back again, but he could hear something behind him. A dragging sound, like vines pulling across the floor. The boys did not stop running until they reached their homes. Evan tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw that giant pumpkin grin waiting for him in the dark. The next morning, neighbors gathered around the same house. Evan and Tyler watched from across the street. The pumpkin on the porch was gone. The candles gone. The hallway completely empty. A thick layer of dust covered the floor, and old cobwebs hung from every corner. One neighbor spoke in a trembling voice. "That house has been empty for 5 years. The owner died on Halloween night. Nobody has lived there since." Evan felt his heart sink. He looked down at his hands. On his palm, stuck from last night, was a small strip of vine. It moved just a little,